Dear students, today we shall be talking about the pond construction for aquaculture. Before proceeding on, it is my request to you all to like and subscribe my channel BioLearnia. There are certain guidelines for the pond design and construction that we should keep in mind before proceeding on. And the first of all that we should keep in mind is the size and shape of the pond. We have to keep in mind that what should be the shape of the pond. That is, whether it should be round, circular, rectangular, that we have to decide. Secondly, we have to keep in mind the depth of the pond, that how much depth of a pond should be, what is the ideal depth, and what are the different types of the ponds which can be used for the aquaculture. And fourthly, if we decide all these very things, then we go for the construction of a fish pond. So we will discuss all these things one by one. The first of all, we shall be discussing the size and shape of the pond. Now, when we say the size and shape of the pond, the square and the rectangular shaped ponds are easiest to build, but a pond of various shapes can be built to fit the size and shape of the land. So it means mostly the square and the rectangular ponds are mostly preferred because they fit ideally according to the size of the land. And secondly, an area of about 300 square meter, that is 300 square meter area, it is good for a family pond and can be built without machinery. So if we have to build a family pond, not for the large scale commercial purpose, that is intensive aquaculture, if it is not for the intensive aquaculture or the commercial purpose, then 300 square meter pond is enough to cater the need of the family. So the ponds can be much larger than this, that is 300 square meter, but for the family this very size is an ideal size because it is manageable. A large pond is not so nicely managed as a smaller pond, and mostly it is recommended that instead of going for a big and the large size pond, one should focus on the small and more ponds. So second important thing and the second important guideline is to have a proper care of the depth. Now what is being told about the depth is that a pond should be shallower on one side and it should be deeper on the other side. That is if there is a scarcity of the water, or the fishes can be able to take refuge in this very deeper portion. And secondly, if you have to drain the water or you have to totally empty the pond, you can easily drain the water out of the outlet. And mostly it is preferred that the pond should not be more than 1 meter to 1.5 meter deep because it is not managed then. Now one important thing is that it should be more preferably it should be 1 meter deep toward the shallower side and 1.5 or 1.2 to 1.5 meter deep toward the deeper portion, and so that water can be completely drained and the harvesting can be made easier. And the one important thing, a logic behind this very depth is that this very depth is manageable. If you decide to get into the pond to harvest the fishes so that you cannot drown, so the laborers cannot drown, so it is up to the height of a individual that is kept in mind. Now the next thing is the types of the ponds. There are different kinds of the ponds which can be made. There are different categories of the ponds which can be constructed for the aqua farming or for the aquaculture or to prepare a aqua farm. So first of all, there can be nursery ponds, there can be rearing ponds, there can be stocking ponds, there can be marketing ponds, there can be broodstock ponds, there can be quarantine ponds. So when we talk about these very nursery ponds, the smallest and the shallowest ponds for the fish culture, these are the nursery ponds. They are about 0.2 to 0.5 hectare if we talk about 0.02 to 0.05 hectare if we talk about the commercial fish farming. So they are about 1 meter deep. When we talk about these very rearing ponds, when we talk about the rearing ponds, these are the larger than the nursery pond. They are about 0.08 to 0.2 hectare, and water is a little bit deeper than that of the, and we can say, rare nursery ponds. The third category, we call it as the stocking ponds. So stocking pond is much larger. It is about 0.2 to 2 hectare. It is more deeper than that of the rearing ponds, and this pond should be perennial. That is, it should be perennial or seasonal. It can be perennial or seasonal. So then there are marketing ponds. We do have the marketing ponds as well. These are the small ponds which are quite deep and are used to keep the fish caught from the stocking ponds. So we take out the fishes from the stocking ponds and keep them in the marketing ponds until or unless we get an order for the sale. Then we do have the brood stock ponds where we keep the brooders. So we select the brooders and we take good care of the brooders so that they can be utilized for the seed, for the induced breeding, for the purpose of breeding, for the better, you can say, stock. Then we do have also the quarantine ponds. So whenever we bring some fishes from the other, you can say, areas, firstly we have to quarantine them. Firstly we have to put them in these very quarantine ponds. We look after them, we take good care of them, we look for the diseases if any. If everything goes normal for, you can say, a week or two, then we put them in our main ponds. These are the figures which show the nursery ponds. These are the figures which show the rearing ponds. These are somewhat stocking ponds. These are the marketing ponds, and these are the quarantine ponds, and these are the brood ponds where the good care is taken for the brooders. Then the fourth important point, which is important one, that is how we construct a fish pond. Now we will study about the construction of a fish pond by the various steps. There are various steps, so we shall be discussing it step by step. There are various steps involved in the building of a fish pond, which is the preparation of the site. That is, we build a clay core, we dig a pond for the building of dikes, we build an inlet and outlet for the water, we protect the pond dikes, we then fertilize the ponds, we then fence the ponds, we then fill the pond with water, and lastly we check the problems, if any, before stocking of the fish. So we have to keep in mind that we are not going to put the fishes in danger if we have not checked the pond, whether there is any kind of seepage, whether there is leakage, whether there are toxic substances, whether the dissolved oxygen is good, whether the pH is good. So in the last, by checking all these very things, then we put fishes in the pond. So we will discuss the construction of the fish pond one by one. The first thing in the so the first thing in the construction or the digging of a pond is the preparation of the site. First of all, we have to prepare the site. So whatever vegetation is there, whatever trees are there, we have to remove the vegetation, and we have to take up, we have to, before digging, we have to remove the stones, we have to move the pebbles, we have to excavate, we have to clear the bushes along the length and breadth of the pond. So now the second thing that is very much important is that when we talk about the clearing of the or the preparation of the site, the firstly we have to look for the trees and the plants or the bushes, if any. If there are the big trees, we have to remove them from the roots, because they will be problematic, their roots will be problematic if we later on, if we neglect them later on, by their death and decay, by their decay, most probably they will make a hole into the pond and our whole pond will get a leakage. Now the topsoil here in this case, that whenever we prepare the this very site, the topsoil should be kept aside. Now this is the topsoil, for example, this is the topsoil that should be kept aside. this very topsoil will be needed for the construction of the dikes, this very strengthening of the dikes, because this very soil can be even laid for the bottom of the pond, because this is very fertile soil. It can induce the, you can say, propagation of the phytoplanktons and the zooplanktons, and later on this very soil can also be used on the dikes, so that you can put on grass for the stoppage of the erosion as well. So the topsoil is set aside and spread over the dikes for the construction. After the construction is complete, it can be moved or used elsewhere in the farm. And for example, this is a pond, and this is a pond. This is a little bit of idea that what we are going to study here, that this is a pond, this is the cross section of a pond, this is called as the dike. What we were studying, that these are the side walls of the pond, which we call them as the dike. They should be more strong. This is the bottom of the pond. It should be shallower on one end, and it should be deeper on the other end. So the deeper end, it is deeper on one side, so that the water can be easily, you can say, drained out. So that is why it should be deeper on the other end. So these are called as the dikes, and this is the cross section of the pond. Now, one thing again here, it is the building of the clay core. So if we are making a pond, in the contour fields, in the contour area, then this very clay core is very much important. This clay core stops the seepage of the water. So this is just like the foundation of a building. So what do? We dig along the sides of the pond. We put the clay in this very ditch, and we compact it. We compact it with the help of the things. We beat it so that the water may not seep out of the pond. So they should be strong. Now these are very much important to stop the leakage, and secondly, they are very much important for the strengthening of the dikes as well. Now when we talk about this clay core is the foundation for the ponds, which make it strong and prevents the water leakage. And secondly, clay core is not needed in the dugout ponds, but it is only needed when we are going to construct a pond in the contour area. So the clay core is needed for the contour ponds and is built under those parts of the dike where the water will be above the original level. So if we have the water above the ground level, then this making of the clay core is very much necessary, so that water leakage can be prevented. The third important step in the construction of a fish pond is digging of the pond. So we have to dig the pond. If we rightly from the smaller pond up to the bigger pond, we need different machineries to dig the pond. If we are going to make a smaller pond, we can dig this very pond with the help of the laborers, manpower. But if we are going to construct a bigger pond, then we use the JCBs, we use the machinery for making the pond. So firstly, we have to make a decision on the pond depth and calculate the dig and the fill. The first decision is how much deeper it should be. Then excavation should be carried out. So then we begin the excavating the pond bottom, and we plan where we have to take the soil from here, from this very portion where we have to keep the soil. So that should be pre-decided, that where we have to put the soil, where we have to keep this very soil. And I told you in the beginning that the uppermost layer of the soil, it is the humus. So it should be preserved for the dikes as well as the pond bottom. Rest of the soil you should decide that where we have to put them. Then the most important component of the pond is its walls, that is we call them dikes. So levees and embankments, these are also the important portion. So we use the soil and excavate, and we try to construct a pond. Whether what kind of pond you have to construct, whether you are going to make a circular pond, whether rectangular pond or circular pond, but mostly the rectangular ponds are the most preferred one. And then we have to compact. For example, here in this machinery, we have to compact each layer before the next layer is put. So if we are putting this very soil on the dikes, then we have to compact this very soil. We have to beat this very soil so that it will become compact. It will not erode easily. So we have to keep these things in mind. Then the important thing in the construction of a pond is inlet and outlet. So we have to take utmost care of the inlet and the outlet. For example, this is the water supply. Here in this very picture you are seeing that this is the water supply. The supply of the water can be from any source. It can be from the river, it can be from the reservoir, it can be from the spring, it can be from the tube well, it can be from the bore well. But we have to be at most cautious about the water which is coming on to the which is going on inside the ponds. So firstly we have to make sure that the water is not having any kind of the silt, water is not having the soil, water is not having the mud, so that they can damage your pond. The silt will get deposited in your pond and your pond will become shallower and shallower. So for that, what we have to do, we have to put the sand and the gravel on this very path, so that whatever the impurities are there, they will be settled down. And secondly, near the seepage we have to make some, you can say, water stagnation area, wherein water will stagnate for some time, there will be settlement. And thirdly we have to put on the screens. We have to put on the screens here. The screen can be of any type. It can be bamboo screens, it can be, you can say, mesh, it can be wires, so that the feral fishes, that is the wild fishes, may not get into your pond. The plastic substances may not get into your pond. So we have to prevent these things from getting into the pond. So that is why we have to make secure the inlet as well as the outlet. We have to screen it. We will talk about this again, that why we have to screen it, because so as to avoid the wild fishes from getting into your pond. If that very wild fish is a carnivorous fish, then they will definitely be very harmful for the larva or the fish being cultured in your pond. So secondly, we have to put on the screens on the outlet as well. Now the screens on the outlet will prevent your fish from escaping to the outside. So these things we have to take care of, that we have to take care of the inlet and we have to take care of the outlet. And one more important thing which I want to share is that inlet should be a little bit higher than that of the outlet. And secondly, the inlet should be a little bit higher, so that when the water will fall on the when the water will fall in the pond, it will get oxygenated from the atmospheric oxygen. Now we will have a little bit of idea that later on, that first of all, what we have to do, we have to keep an eye on the protection of the pond dikes as well. Now I was talking about the dike. This is the dike which is actually holding on all the pressure of the water. So it should be very much strong, it should be heavy. And secondly, I was talking about the trench. This is the core trench which gets along the dike, so that the foundation of the dike is very, you can say, strong. It will not get easily damaged, or it will not get collapsed. So it should be able to resist the water pressure resulting from the pond water depth. It should be impervious, so that there is no leakage. So it should be high enough to keep the pond water from overrunning. So the level of the water should always be lower than that of the dike, so that there should not be overflow of the water. And secondly, the fish is unable to escape, because fish many times jump. They jump, and some of the fishes are very active. They jump out of the pond and they will die when they get outside the pond. So we have to at least it should be 30 to 50 centimeter higher than the level of the water. It should be 30 centimeter for the shy fishes and 50 centimeter for the catfishes, because catfishes are more strong and they are more stronger. And then the next step is the fertilization of the pond. This is an important step. Why do we fertilize the pond? Now you have constructed the pond, you have strengthened the dikes, you have made an inlet and outlet, you have made a clay core trench, you have seen all these very things, you have prepared all these very things. Now you have to fertilize the pond. Now what is the purpose of the fertilization of the pond? Now we use these very fertilizers for the propagation of the phytoplanktons. Now if there are phytoplanktons, they will ultimately give rise to the zooplanktons. Zooplanktons will come as well, or zooplanktons will survive because they feed on the phytoplanktons. And if there are zooplanktons and the phytoplanktons in your pond, then it will definitely cut the expenditure spent on the feed you feed the fish, because they will definitely feed on the phytoplankton and zooplanktons, and most probably the phytoplanktons and zooplanktons, they are called as the living capsules because they have the good amount of the nutrients in them, and they will definitely be good for the health of your fishes. So that is why fertilizers, they are used whether natural or synthetic. They are used in the ponds to increase the production of the natural food organisms. So we call these very phytoplanktons and zooplanktons as the living food organisms. As I told you that they are also called as the living capsules because they have the almost all the nutrients in them. So these very organisms, these include the phytoplanktons, these include the zooplanktons and insects as well. So they are all the part of a complex food web. They converge towards the fish production. They are ultimately required for the production of the fish. Then secondly, one of the important factors, that is the fencing of the pond. The pond fencing is very much important because many times it is very much needed to prevent poaching. It is very much needed to prevent the animals or the, you can say, birds from getting into your pond to catch the fishes. And thirdly, it is also used to prevent the accidents, if any, so that you can prevent the accident, that is many times the children's to play near the ponds and they get into the pond. So as to prevent the accidents, the fencing is very much required. Then we do have the last point, that is the filling of the pond. Now when I was talking about the inlet, I talked about that the pipe should be a little bit higher than that of the level of the water which is required. Now I told you that this very water, when comes in contact with the atmospheric air, it oxygenates, it gets oxygenated. So that is, this very oxygen is very much required for the good growth of the fishes, good, you can say, environment of the fishes. And secondly, when we put on the such pipes which have the huge pressure, then we have to put on the gravels, we have to put on the gravels or the stones at the bottom of the pond, as it is seen in the you can say picture, that these very stones are put along the bottom of the pond, so that by the pressure of the water, the bottom of the pond may not get damaged. So as to prevent the damage of the bottom of the pond, these very stones are very much required. And herein the screen is seen here, that it is put on to prevent the incoming of the impurities, incoming of the soil particles or plastic or the feral fishes into the water. Then lastly, what we have to do, we have to check for the various problems before stocking of the fish. At least we should wait for 4 to 7 days before stocking. So all these things we call it as the pre-stocking. So before stocking, we have to fertilize the pond, we have to grow the phytoplankton so that when the fishes are stocked, they have enough food for the feeding. So we have to look for the soil structure, we have to look for the seepage if any, we have to look for the you can say dikes, that if they are able to cope up with the pressure of the water or not. Then we have to take care of all the physicochemical parameters. More probably we have to look into the pH, we have to look for the dissolved oxygen content, carbonate, bicarbonate, that is many other things we have to keep in mind. And lastly, we have to keep in mind whether there is a growth of the phytoplanktons is there or not. So these are all the things that we have to keep in mind. But let us have a little bit of a discussion on that. What is required? What is this? I was telling you that the dike should be very much strong. So many times it is recommended that the dike should be in the ratio of 2:1. That is, if there is the pond is 1 meter deep, then at least 2 meter slope should be given to the pond in the form of the dike, so that the dikes are very much, you can say, strong to cope up the pressure of the water. I was also talking about the fertilization of the pond. So I told different kinds of fertilizers can be used. They can be animal manures, compost, they can be chemical fertilizers as well. So we have to take care of all these very things in a proper amount. So if the soil is acidic, we can also use the lime, we can also use the wood ash. So and many times cow dung manure is also used as a manure for the fertilization of the pond, so that the phytoplankton and the zooplanktons can grow. I was also talking about the compacting. So compacting of the soil on the sides of the dike, it is very much required that we should put on the top layer which we preserved for the later use. We should put that very soil in the bottom and along the dikes, and we should compact it very nicely. We should compact it very nicely so that it makes the dike stronger, and it is able to retain. There should be a water retention capability of the dikes as well. Then we should, many times we also put on the running grass along the top side of the you can say dike, so that it can prevent the erosion of the soil as well. Many times the pond is also fenced with the help of the hedges around the pond. And many times the ponds are constructed in such a manner that the currents of the air currents, they are also kept in mind, so that there is maximum, you can say, contact of the air with the water, or toward the direction of the wind, so that there is better oxygenation. So this is all about the construction of fish pond. This was a quick recap about the construction of a fish pond, that what are the things, what are the guidelines we have to keep in mind for the construction of fish pond. Hope you enjoyed this very lecture, and I request you all to like and subscribe my channel, BioLearnia. Thank you very much. Next time we shall be dealing with the management of the fish ponds. Thank you very much.